All right, so I was born and I think I was baptized when I was 3 months old to a Christian church, and obviously not something I made the choice for, but we went to church on Sundays. We were that family, played soccer games on Saturdays and went to church on Sundays. I had both of my parents growing up. Uh, we were not super close with my grandparents, and I kind of always longed for that relationship. But ultimately, we went to church, and then I got to middle school, and church started to get a little bit more, um, I guess, complicated. Right before I got to middle school, my parents started realizing that this church didn't really accept us because we weren't not the right denomination, but everybody that went to this church was one type of people, and we weren't that type of people. And so slowly got to a point where we kind of got pushed out of the church, and they said, "Hey, you know what? We haven't seen you in a while, and that's okay. If you don't come back, we're okay with this." And I thought, man, that's kind of a messed up view of church. That church was just open, and everybody's meant to be there, and that really kind of confused me. When I went to middle school, I was a very empathetic, loving person. I had an older sister who was super smart, really good at accomplishing everything, and I always went through life as being Claire's little brother. That's how I grew up, was Claire's little brother. So in middle school, somebody started something called Middle School Ministries, and I was like, oh, I want to go to that. Like, we're going to go and we're going to talk about God, and it's going to be great. And I went to that, and I had a lot of really good experiences. I had a lot of really great leaders who kind of challenged me to think about other things. And then I had one bad experience where somebody was just not very welcoming. They were really mean to me. And on such a simple level, they just did such a hurtful gesture that I was like, I don't think I want to go back anymore. So I stopped going back to middle school ministries, and this is where I really started to slowly drift. My family had stopped going to church. Now I didn't have middle school ministries. I was in Boy Scouts growing up, and we prayed every time. And what it meant when we were going to pray at Boy Scouts was just put your head down and be quiet. Like, somebody's going to speak good things into the world, and put your head down and be quiet, but you're not really talking to somebody. I was listening to somebody else just talk, and it wasn't, I don't know, I didn't feel a connection. I didn't feel like I was talking to anybody. I felt like I was talking to an empty room. And I never had to pray. Somebody else always prayed, and I was like, "This is part where you take your hat off and everybody looks at the ground or closes their eyes, and that's what praying means." So I went on to high school, and after I was done with Boy Scouts, the entire aspect of having God in my life just started to drift further and further. At this time, my sister had gone to a four-year university. She graduated top of her class from there. She went on to go and finish her Juris Doctorate and pass the bar first try, and then she went on to go and get a master's in forensic psychology, and just massively successful. And the whole time, every time she would do something, I felt like all eyes are on me, and I better step up and do something great. And I really felt just kind of this pressure to perform. Sophomore year of high school, I decided I was going to start swimming. It was totally out of the blue. I didn't make the soccer team my freshman year. Went back my sophomore year and I made the soccer team, and none of my friends did. I thought, you know what, I want to try a different sport that doesn't rely on other people. I want a time that defines me, and that time is not questionable at all. So I started swimming. And when I started swimming, I found something I was finally good at. Like, I wasn't just a member of a team, but I was like a standout on a team. And even at my school, being as accomplished as they were, I wasn't a standout, but I was better than the average person. And it depended on how much time and effort you were willing to put in. So I put in this time and effort, and I realized that the more time and effort I put in, the better I got. And that was because of something I was doing. And all praise went to me, because I was doing 6 or 8 hours of training a day. I would wake up and go to a morning swim practice. I'd come home after school, do homework, and then I would literally run to swim practice, and my mom would drop my swim stuff off for me, and then I would go swim, and then I would get a ride home. And I was doing this every single day, and it was like, I was seeing the benefits. I'm putting in 6 or 8 hours, and I'm getting massively faster. And that was kind of the first taste of power, where I didn't give praise to anybody except for myself. I realized my direct input equaled my direct output, and it was crazy. So then I went to college and I started swimming even harder. And I realized I'm in control of my own destiny. As a freshman, I was an MVP, and I just kept getting better and better and better. And it was all due to how good I was at swimming. My uncle, when I was in college, my uncle at the time, he was homeless. And I came home my sophomore year of college and went and found him actually sleeping in the back of his car in a park. And I said, hey, like, I can't go to sleep at night not knowing that you're safe. Like, I don't have grandparents. There were no grandparents. The only person I had besides my mom and my dad and my sister was my uncle. And I had to tell him, like, hey, I need you to come home. Like, I have to know you're safe. Like, please come live with us. So my uncle moved home and he started living there. 2 years later, I moved home. And at this time, I had a job. I was finally making, like, real money. Not real money, but to me, I had worked at a pet store and made, $7 an hour. I was making $300 or $400 a weekend. And my uncle was a smoker. And I was like begging him, hey, I'll buy you whatever you need. I'll buy you whatever gum you need to stop smoking. I'll buy you whatever patch, anything. Like, I have the money and the means to do this. And this kind of came from the feeling of like, when I wanted to get better at swimming, I tried harder. And now when I wanted my uncle to get better, I'll try harder. I'll just put more money after it. I'll put more time. I'll be more intense with it. And I would buy him everything to do it, and he just wouldn't do it. And it came to a point where I just told him, like, if you don't stop smoking and you die of cancer, I'm not going to come to your funeral. And 6 months later, he died of cancer. And that haunted me, because it was the first time where I had become this big, powerful man who's now out of college with a bachelor's degree. And I had money, and I've accomplished everything I ever set my mind to I could accomplish. And this was the first time I fell short, and I felt helpless. And I was pretty spiteful at God over that. I don't think I had any specific words for him at that time, but it hurt. And life goes on. Maybe a couple months later, took my dog to the vet while my parents were out of town, and we found out my dog also had cancer and had to be put down. And it was my childhood dog, and my parents were out of town, and it's what needed to be done, and I was ready to be a man. And that's what the man does, is they make choices and decisions that they have to, even if they don't want to. And again, sitting alone, 100% alone in that room with the dog going to sleep on my feet, I didn't feel God. I felt alone. I continued training for Olympic trials. I wanted to make it to Olympic trials as a swimmer, and I was probably training 8 to 12 hours a day at this point, also coaching a swim team, multiple swim teams. And I decided finally that if I'm going to do something with my life, I want to do something with coaching. Like, I started coaching swimming and I loved it. And I said, I'm going to go back and get my master's degree. Like, this is what I want to do. I want to change the world for the better. I want to help other people reach their goals, as I could kind of see that the door was closing on my goals of Olympic trials. I knew it wasn't going to happen. Even though I wanted it, I was training, I knew it wouldn't happen. And probably 3 months into my master's program, I got a call from my family while I was at school, and they said, hey, after school, don't go home, come to the hospital. Dad's in the hospital. And so I went to the hospital, and I think I'd probably seen my dad cry twice, maybe 3 times in my life. He was a pretty solid man, pretty stoic and pretty quiet. And he started to tell me that he had cancer. And he was crying. So it went from being scared, just because that word had been so heavily tied to losing things. I kind of saw the writing on the wall. And again, I finally just started moving somewhere with my life, getting a career. I was like, man, my dad's not going to see me be this swim bum that lives at home. He's going to see me go get a master's degree and get married and have a family. And then this happens. And I thought, you know what, we can beat this. We can beat this. And so I was doing student teaching. I was coaching 2 swim teams, and I was sleeping in the hospital. In and out of different nursing homes. And it was probably about 8 months. And 8 months later, my dad passed away. I was 25. And I just felt so helpless. And this time I wasn't just dismissive. I cursed God. My dad was just such a great man, and it's impossible to know how somebody who's so good could be subjected to something so ugly and hideous. He'd worked 37 years at the same job, and he had retired 2 years before that. Bought a motorcycle, finally has a chance to live, paid for my sister and I to go through college, and then he dies of cancer at 70 years old, which was pretty much the way things were going in my life. So I pushed against God. Everything that bad that had ever come on me, I dealt with myself. I felt like any bad things that happened were my fault. Like, you brought this on yourself. And anything good that happened to me, well, that was also my responsibility because I put in the work and the time and the effort. And so ultimately, I spent about 4 years thinking to myself, like, life is just meant to be lived. I don't have to answer to anybody. Life is so short, I'm going to do everything I want. I'm going to buy everything I want. I'm going to do whatever I want, and I don't want anything close to me at all. So I really tried to sabotage a lot of my relationships with friends and family and my then girlfriend at the time, because if you have things that are close to you, you're going to get hurt. And I didn't want anything to be close to me. I didn't want to get hurt anymore. It's just been 7 years of pain at this point. And so I really started to just kind of sabotage my relationships and live a life where I did whatever I wanted and I answered to no one. And I kept trying to fill the empty feeling and that hole in my heart with more knowledge or more things, more possessions, because I had money and I could buy motorcycles and I could buy, whatever I wanted, surfboards. And I realized that the more things I bought, the more empty I feel. And it just kept going. It was a cycle of these bad feelings. One night, I wake up next to my wife and she goes, you're not the person that you used to be. You're just kind of a shadow of the person you used to be. And I started to think back of, okay, let's see, who am I? Who have I been? What have I done? Everything that defined me, from being a man to being a swimmer to being a coach, all these things that I thought really defined me, and I felt really lost and alone and like I didn't know who I was. And all of a sudden it just started crashing down around me, and I realized, like, I don't know who I am. I've lost my dad. I'm the only remaining male figure in my entire family. And ultimately, I started to go through some really dark times, some really sad times. Sometimes where I just thought the world doesn't know who I am, and it would carry on without me. And it doesn't really matter whether I'm here or not because I'm insignificant. It just don't matter. I wanted to be somebody that mattered my whole life. And I realized that essentially I wasn't somebody who mattered. And in those dark times, somebody told me, like, hey, you should try praying. And I'm like, I don't. Everybody always told me, like, Jesus Christ needs to be your savior. These are the ultimatums, and if you don't meet these ultimatums, then you're not going to be accepted in the kingdom of heaven. And I hated being told that, like, do this and you're in. And it felt exclusionary. So when somebody suggested, like, praying, I was like, okay, we'll give it a shot. And the first time I prayed, it was awkward. I just talked out loud to an open room. Nobody was in there, and I didn't feel anything. And I realized that I had kind of not been a great person to my wife this whole time, and I just told her, like, I've been somebody that's so cold and mean, and I've pushed you away for so many years because I'm so afraid of getting hurt. I don't know why you're still with me. And about a week later, my wife had a conversation with me, and she said, I forgive you. I forgive you for who you've been, because I always knew who you could be. And this whole time I wanted God to strike a tree with lightning. I wanted God to do some huge miracle and save my uncle or my grandpa or my dad from cancer. And he never did. And my wife forgiving me was the first time that opened my eyes, like, he's here. He doesn't always give me what I want, but he gives me what I need. And so I kept praying, and it kind of changed to just me being in this dark room with Jesus, just sitting in a chair and having a conversation. nothing else, just darkness all around us, just me and him having this conversation. And I kept praying and praying, and the more I prayed, the more I realized that all these times that I had gone through these hardships, that he was with me, that I wasn't alone, that in order for me to become the man that I was supposed to become, my dad had to pass away. In order for me to be challenged to step up and realize that I'm a coach, my uncle had to pass away. In order to be good at swimming, that was a gift from God. That was not something that I did. It was because God allowed me to do those things. God put that fire in me. God put those character traits in me. And I kind of had like a backwards domino effect of once the first domino fell and I realized that God was present, that he's always been there. Through years of denouncing him and being angry with him and telling other people that God wasn't real and that he wasn't there, he was there through all that. And he still loved me. And that was, there's so many different things that I took from my life story and perspective, but I really think the overall message is you can never go too far and not come back to God. Every night, I choose to pray with my wife, and we never pray for ourselves. We always pray for other people. We pray for God to bring other people forward that need help, and sometimes it's in a big way, and it's somebody really close to us who reaches out or just says something that tips me off to like, hey, we should have a conversation. Whereas sometimes it's small things like being approached by a homeless man who needs a pair of socks and realizing like, hey, we ask God every night, like bring people forward that we can impact their lives in a positive way. I still haven't made the leap to go back to church yet, but I also feel more connected to God than I've ever felt in my life. Just having that personal relationship every night where we get to have a conversation with him.